Okay, we are now recording and everyone from the lobby is admitted into the meeting.
Welcome to this public meeting of the Northern Beaches Local Planning Panel. My name is Peter Biscoe.
Yep, sounds good, Pat.
My name is Peter Biscoe and I'm the chair of the panel. With me today are Brian Kirk and Oliver Klein, who are both expert members of the panel, and John Simmons, the community representative. Have on the public meeting agenda 5 items, which I will identify in a moment. We also have 2 non-public meeting items. They are non-public meeting items because they do not satisfy the criteria specified by the Minister for Planning for matters to go before a public meeting. So the first item on the agenda for the public meeting is item 4.1, 37 Hay Street, Collaroy, for demolition of existing dwelling and construction of a seniors housing development, and this is DA 2023/0868. There are no speakers registered, no persons registered to speak at all for this matter. In relation to item 4.2, which is 1/9-15 Central Avenue, Manly, that is for the fit out and use of a courtyard for the seating of 100 patrons operating from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And it's DA 2023/0368. There are 3 persons registered to speak. One is a submitter in support of the proposal, Louise Brown, a committee member of Strata Plan 61139. And for the applicant, 2 people registered to speak. They are Kaima Doyle, Robinson Urban Planning, and Matt Clifton, a representative on behalf of the applicant. Item 4.3 on the public meeting agenda concerns 1214 Rockbath Road, Palm Beach, for demolition works and construction of a dwelling house, including swimming pool. And this one is DA 2023/0342. There are 5 registered speakers. For the objectors, Greg Boston of Boston Blythe Fleming, speaking on behalf of an objector, and Malcolm White of 16 Rockbath Road, Palm Beach. For the applicant, the people registered to speak are Jenny Askin, a director of A Square Planning, Jeff Sofair, architect, and Darren Harvey, the owner. Item 4.4 is 171 Forest Way, Belrose, for demolition works and construction of housing for seniors or people with a disability. It is DA 2022/1530. There is no one registered to speak in relation to that item. And finally, of the public meeting items, is item 4.5 on the agenda concerning 68A Elamata Road, Mona Vale, for a DA for alterations and additions to a dwelling house, including a swimming pool. This is DA 2023/0774. And the speakers, there is one objector, Colin Pocklington of 70 Elamata Road, Mona Vale, and for the applicant, Paul Famelli. I said finally, but in fact there is a further item on the public meeting agenda. That is item 4.6, 107 Iris Street, Beacon Hill, Torrens title subdivision of 1 lot into 4 lots, DA 2023/0379. There are no objectors registered to speak. There is 1 person registered to speak for the applicant, and that is Marie Jalusis Hayes, who is the applicant owner. I will, for completeness, identify the 2 non-public meeting items. They are item 5.1, 24 Cabarita Road, Avalon Beach, for demolition works and construction of a dwelling house, including swimming pool and boat shed. That's DA 2023/0083. And item, and this is the final one, 5.2, concerning 1 Niangala Close, Belrose, for alterations and additions to an existing building, including the internal fit-out of a centre-based childcare facility and medical centre. It is DA 2022/2060. The procedure that this panel follows consistently with the regulations that govern us is that at the end of the public meeting, the panel will retire into closed session to consider and reach decisions in relation to all the items, both on the public meeting agenda and the non-public meeting agenda. Usually the panel is able to make reasoned decisions on the same day, and the decisions and the reasons are published within 24 hours, usually in the form of minutes of the meeting on the council website. This is an opportunity for speakers to address the panel. It's not necessary to just simply read your written submissions. The panel has been briefed with all the written submissions. It would be appreciated if speakers would be succinct, and it is unnecessary to repeat what other speakers have said. If you agree with what they say, it's sufficient to say that you agree with them. It is necessary for all speakers to use respectful language. The normal time for speaking is 3 minutes. It can be extended, however, on application being made to the chair if when those 3 minutes expire. There should be some sort of noise or buzzer or something which sounds to alert a speaker to the fact that 3 minutes is expired. Well, then we'll proceed. First of all, the panel acknowledges the traditional custodians of the lands in which we gather and pays respects to the elders registered to speak, past and present. All members of the panel have signed declarations of interest in accordance with the statutory requirement, and no conflicts of interest are disclosed in relation to any matter before the panel. I note that the minutes of the panel held on the 6th of December 2023, that was the last meeting of the panel, were adopted by the chair and have been posted on council's website. Turning now to the agenda items, as I mentioned before, the first item on the agenda, 4.1, concerning 37 Hay Street, Colloy, BA 2023/0868. There's no one registered to speak. So we'll move straight on then to item 4.2 on the agenda. That's 1/9-15 Central Avenue, Mountie, fit out and use of the courtyard for the seating of 100 patrons operating from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. at BA 2023/0368. First person registered. The first person registered as speaker is Louise Brown, a committee member of Strata Plan 61139. Ms. Brown, would you like to address the panel? Ms. Brown? Ms. Brown, can you hear me? I can see you. I don't think she can hear me. Heidi, are you able to telephone Ms. Brown and ask her to address us if she wishes to do so?
I can call Ms. Brown into the meeting. She is muted. That may be why she's not able to talk.
Thought she could hear us. She doesn't sound. She looks as though she can't hear us. Ms. Brown, can you hear me?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, no problems.
So I can hear you now. Sorry.
Would you like to address the panel?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much.
Can I just inquire, Ms. Brown, did you not hear anything I said earlier?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't. I thought that we were all waiting for the meeting to start.
I see.
So,
okay.
Because it said
Well, I won't
keep your microphone on.
Thank
Sorry,
you. I won't go through it all again, but normally speakers are allowed 3 minutes in which to speak. That can be extended on application. We've been briefed with copies of all the written submission.
Yep.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so I'm the owner of a residential apartment and a commercial shop. I'm on the Residential Strata Committee, the Commercial Strata Committee, and the Commercial Representative on the Building Management Committee of the whole building. I've been an owner since 1999. My apartment overlooks the courtyard. So the courtyard has been used as outdoor seating by the cafes since the building opened. There's been no work done on the courtyard since 1999. It's in desperate need of a refurbishment. The applicant gave a presentation to the commercial owners on his vision for the area, and the commercial strata has worked very closely with the applicant on making sure that the application is suitable to both the commercial strata and also to the residential strata. One of the primary concerns of the commercial strata was that the needs of residents were first and foremost. So the applicant then invited all residents to attend or the strata committee of the residential to attend a meeting, and they expressed their support after he presented. The applicant then invited all residents to attend a presentation at Manly Library, and questions were invited, and residents in attendance expressed support for the proposal. So critically, the most important things are that the works are cosmetic only, the usage doesn't change, the number of seats doesn't change and hasn't changed in the past 23 years since it's been operating as a courtyard for seating for cafes, and the same cafes continue to share the area. So nothing really changes from those points of view. So what is proposed is actually better for residents in many, many ways. So the usage is limited to seated dining only. So at the moment, there's no such limitation on that, so that will be an added bonus for residents. The music is limited to very low background music. So at the moment, there's no limitation on sound. The extensive pergolas, vines, and the foliage that are proposed will absorb a great deal of sound. So I believe that will be something that will be very beneficial to residents. In fact, the measures from sound go well beyond what was recommended by the sound engineer, because the applicant knows that that's a major priority for the strata committee. The appearance for residents and also visitors will be enormously enhanced. It's going to look so much better, and the cafe owners will be subject to a license agreement. And these license agreements have been substantially redrafted from previous versions expressly to improve the amenity of residents. So in regards to the relocation of the boundary, this has been an agreement between the residential and the commercial stratums, and has nothing to do with the applicant really. That's the rear wall of the commercial courtyard. The rear wall that's there now was never approved by council, so the refurbishment will replace this illegal structure with an authorised structure. So the commercial strata has consulted extensively with the applicant and with residents, and believes that the refurbishment of the courtyard will be a very positive step for everyone involved, for visitors and for residents alike. So that's all I'd like to contribute to the meeting, to the consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Does the panel have any questions? Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for that, Ms. Brown. We'll move on to the next person registered to speak. The applicant, they are Naeem Doyle, Robinson Urban Planning, Matt Clifton, representative on behalf of the applicant. Ms. Doyle.
Yes.
Address the panel.
Yeah, perfect. Good morning, Chair and panel members. Obviously, I am Kramer Doyle from Robinson Urban Planning, and I'm here today with Matt Clifton, who's the applicant representative for the ground floor tenancies that currently share this outdoor space. Obviously, we've read the planner's assessment report and the recommendation, and on that basis, we would like to request that the panel considers approving the matter, and if not, deferring the matter for the reasons outlined in the refusal to give us time to address those. We were caught off guard with the matter being referred to the panel, and at that time we were acting under the assumption that we could produce the additional information requested by council. Once that report was made publicly available, we requested an emergency council to talk through the proposal and for both parties to hopefully come to a better understanding of the nature of the proposal and its impacts. The meeting with council was very productive. It became apparent there were some gaps in council records, and there was also some misunderstandings in relation to the nature of the proposal, also its scope and the health officer's assumptions. We strongly believe the proposal has merit, as it is effectively a refurbishment of an existing outdoor dining space. That space, as the previous supporter mentioned, has been in operation for 20 or so years, and this is the first time refurbishment works have taken place. There's no change to the number of people that will use that space. There's no change to the hours of operation. It will close at 10 p.m, same as existing. And there's also no change to the size of the approved licensed area. in effect, the proposal is for works to a very tired and rundown space. But not only in addition to that, the proposal before council and the panel, it includes 3 physical measures that will result in an improved outcome for residents. So the application includes the installation of an operable roof, which will sit over the courtyard, which can be closed to reduce potential noise impacts. The proposal also includes the provision of an internal pathway along the back of the 2 venues known as In Situ and Ground Zero. So they can now, patrons within those venues can now access the shared communal toilets without the need to go out through the courtyard, snake around the courtyard and then come back into the building. And also too, the proposal includes changes to the boundary walls, which will be extended in height, again, limiting, improving noise barriers and limiting potential noise impacts to neighbours. As part of our documentation to council, we produced an acoustic report, which demonstrates that the use of the outdoor area complies with relevant noise standards. Council is simply seeking further information in regards to the current operations of the internal venues. So on that basis, we would very much like the panel to approve the application before you, as we believe it has merit. If not, the matter be deferred so we can address the outstanding matters raised by council in a timely fashion. And then obviously Matt and I are here to answer any questions you may have.
Yes, thank you, Ms Doyle. I'll start off with a couple of questions, if I may.
Sure.
You said a couple of times that no change to the number of people. Now, the current approval, as I understand it, refers to seating for 100 patrons of the In Situ restaurant inside and outside across the both. If you say there's no, you're not asking, you say you're not, aren't you asking for 100 people to be capable of being seated in the courtyard, plus maintaining your inside seating, which I think is of the order of 74?
Yes, so you're exactly correct, and this was to the effect of the meeting that we had council, is that outdoor space is shared with 3 other tenancies. So Ground Zero, the cafe, and what was Java and various iterations and Osties. And within that outdoor courtyard, there has been 100 seats in that space, and they've been operating that way for the 20 or so years. The let's just say the gap in information is there is no record of those other spaces using that area. So the space has had 100 seats in it, and the consent that you're referring to with the 100 capacity for In Situ relates to only one of those tenancies sharing the space.
But Ms Doyle, there is no apparent approval at the moment for 100 people in the courtyard in addition to 74 in the In Situ restaurant, is there?
Yeah. Well, we believe there is, and we are trying to locate it, but obviously given the nature of the proposal and where we're at, we can't produce that at this time. So what we would like the opportunity to do is provide additional information and amend those reporting numbers in the consent, because what's existing and what's sort of consented aren't marrying up at the moment.
Yes, may I suggest that seems to be critical to your argument, because you've said, and you said it in your September letter, that this is for works or for refurbishment only. But unless you can find an approval of 100 people in the courtyard, plus I think it's something of the order of 74 inside, and all we've got to go on is one approval, which is for 100 people inside and outside. So you're isn't that so?
No, that's exactly correct. And that was I guess the bulk of the meeting that we had with council, and we would simply like some additional time to address that specifically. So the numbers that are being stated reflect the existing approvals. The acoustic modelling, we believe, satisfies that. So even though the numbers within the consent, what's existing and the numbers are in the consent are different, we believe we can come back to council, clarify those numbers and tidy up that existing consent.
Now, as regards that acoustic model, I think the issue there is that it's perhaps not as specific as it could have been as to whether or not they've taken into account 100 outside plus courtyard plus another 74 inside. That's you refer to inside patrons. So is that what you have in mind, that you'd get your acoustic expert to address that issue and make clear what he has taken into account in a supplementary report?
Exactly.
Yes. Now, if we were, the panel may have some other questions too, but can I just round off my questioning by saying what sort of, before I say that, I think we've reached the point of saying unless you can locate another approval for 100 outside and 74 inside, this isn't just an application for works. It is seeking to have 100 outside plus 74 inside, and that reality will have to be faced.
Yes.
Okay, but you're exploring that.
And that is exactly, this is what came to light in the meeting that we had, and yes, we will address that specifically when we come, if we are given the opportunity to come back to the panel. Now,
that then raises the question of, well, what period would you be seeking a deferral?
Oh, we will, obviously the shared, operators of the space are very much keen to have these works take place, and obviously the idea was this would happen prior to summer trading, so we would aim to turn that information around very quickly, because it's imperative to the applicant as well, that this is seen through.
Well, let me press you a little further. It isn't the usual practice of this panel to defer matters, but on occasions we do. One of the reasons for that is we're conscious that there's a review process available where you can amend things if you wish. So I'm not going to, if the panel were minded, I'm not going to preempt them at all, but if the panel were minded to grant you a deferral, we need a bit of specificity as to how long you realistically think you can get these matters attended to.
We would engage the relevant consultants, as soon as the outcome of the meeting, was determined and we knew which pathways were available to us, and we would hope to have those reports produced. Let's be realistic, it's the 13th of December, so maybe the end of January we could have that documentation to council.
Right, thank you. Yes, does the panel have any other questions?
Yes, thank you, Peter. So, Ms Doyle, question then. So I'm just trying to get my head properly around this. Whoever's not on mute, can you please mute yourself, please? We don't need additional side conversations occurring while this meeting's proceeding, thanks. Your client is the occupant of in situ, is that correct?
One of.
Right. So is your client, are you representing all of the premises that use the courtyard?
Correct.
Right. And so if I then come to, and you say there are 4, I thought there were 3, there are 4, are there?
That's actually incorrect. Ms. Doyle, you're not representing all of the other lots. You're representing Mr. Clifton. And could I just clarify, sorry to butt in.
That would be helpful. No, this could be very helpful.
I'm on the commercial strata, and there are 4 lots that back onto the commercial courtyard, which are entitled to use the courtyard. There are 3 cafes, 3 lots which are currently using the courtyard, and the 100 seating is a maximum for all of the cafes, and and there has been 100 seats there shared by the 3 cafes for 23 years, and those 3 cafes will continue to use the 100 seats. So from that point of view, nothing has changed in terms of seating. So it's just that Matt's application is asking for the 100 seats to be approved, but it will be still a shared usage of those 100 seats. It's not 100 plus 74 for Matt.
Ms. Brown, That's very helpful. And where is the fourth tenancy that has the rights to use this?
It's lot 5, which is currently a beauty salon or something, but it could be used as a cafe in the future.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. And you were talking about license arrangements that are being redrafted at the moment for use of this space. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And does that do those agreements define spatially? In other words, does it define specific areas of the courtyard?
No, it doesn't. It's a shared arrangement, so all of the cafes are able to use the courtyard at the same time. And I understand that they use those little digits so people can order from the digits, and when the food's brought out, it goes to the correct table where the person's sitting.
Right, so they have the rights to use, but they also have responsibilities to look after the outdoor space.
Correct.
And so all of the tenancies are then bound by whatever hours of operation are applicable to the use of the courtyard.
Correct, and that's all strictly in the license agreements.
Good, and I think they're all captured in another consent. The other thing too is, are they all then contributing by special levy or something to these works?
They're not contributing to the works. We have a separate arrangement in terms of the works.
Right.
But they will be contributing to the costs and paying a license fee moving forward.
Thank you. That's very helpful. So now coming back, Ms. Doyle, to your documentation, your statement of environmental effects and other documents that have been submitted with this application, when you draw on the history of the site, you're drawing on a consent that has only been issued for one of these tenancies. Is that correct?
The consents that I outlined within the statement of environmental effects were the consents that I was able to locate relevant to the use of this courtyard. So I produced, I think there was three references, and that was what I was able to draw from a GIPA search of council files. And I provided that information for reference purposes because that's all I was able to locate.
Okay, so if I have a look at the reference to a consent issued in 1999, which was then subsequently modified at least twice, that deals with a condition in the second modification, the seating both within and outside the shop is not to exceed 100 seats. That is a reference to that particular shop one, and not in any way limiting the courtyard. It's only the shop, because I also understand that at least one of the tenancies has obtained a license or a lease over part of Sydney Road for outdoor seating out the front. Is that correct?
Yes.
So we have, and they're outdoor seats. They're outdoor seats. So in other words, we don't have a particular, or you haven't been able to find a particular and specific consent that relates to seating only for the courtyard.
Yeah, for the other two tenancies and how they've been using it. In effect, they've been using it for 20 years, but we haven't located a consent or documentation that shows that.
No. So this courtyard doesn't really, it doesn't have a consent, or it's uncontrolled.
Not that it's, I wouldn't say that it's uncontrolled. I believe when the building was approved, it was approved as an outdoor commercial use lot. You know,
Yep.
it's not.
But not with a specific number of seats.
That's correct.
So I'm just thinking that the previous consents for shop 1 and shop 2, shop 1 being in situ, shop 2 ground zero, and particularly the shop 2 one only deals with hours. It doesn't, from your statement of environmental effects, it's only shop 1 that deals with seating numbers. But that doesn't, they actually don't shed light on the number of seats in this courtyard. The courtyard has operated with 100 seats or thereabouts, according to the diagrams that have been submitted. It's now an application to reconfigure and renovate. Let's call it renovation, basically. Renovate the courtyard seating and have 100 seats there. This question about impacts on approved seating numbers in various tenancies is really a bit of a furphy, isn't it? Because, I mean, how is one to interpret that modification to shop 1, where it says the seating both within and outside the shop is not to exceed 100 seats? Clearly, isn't the purpose of this application to now make that matter clear and to make it clear as to the operation and so it's not just works. Isn't this purpose also to make it clear how this courtyard is to operate, having regard to the comments Ms Brown said about these licence arrangements?
So 100%, and that's why we are seeking deferment, so we can come back and be, crystal clear on that specific issue.
But this application can stand on its own, can't it? Because if there's no crystal clear answer to what's been happening in the past, this is what establishes the ground zero for the operation of the courtyard, the number of seats and how it's to operate. Isn't it not?
Sorry, what is your question?
Well, the previous consents really don't add value. This consent, if a consent is to be granted, this consent establishes the ground rules for the number of seats in the courtyard and the arrangements in place for how the use of that space is shared amongst the tenancies. At the moment, there doesn't appear to be any consent that deals with those two questions.
Correct, unless we can pull something out of, Strata's record, but yes. How the space has been used and what is found on documentation is the gap.
Yeah, but what I'm suggesting is there's no need to fill the gap. You could this consent. I mean, if a consent is issued today, it establishes the rules.
Yes.
Going forward.
Yes, and subject to current, noise standards and management practices, and how it's a new DA. So.
Thank you. Thanks, Peter.
Any other panel have a question?
Oliver?
Yes?
You there, Oliver?
Yes, yes.
Did you want to raise the issue of the amenities, which are jointly shared?
Well, I can do, yeah. So my question previously, when we were dealing with the council planners, were, and I don't know who to pose this to, whether it's Miss Brown or Miss Doyle, but it's the facilities, the toilet facilities are presumably also shared across the various tenancies, the 3 or the 4 tenancies as well. Now, if the capacity of the courtyard is to be confirmed through this process, are those amenities of a suitable scale or number, so the number of male and female or unisex facilities, are they appropriate then for the scale of confirming 100 users of the courtyard space, and the internal spaces, presuming the 4th one could be converted to a cafe as well? Is it undersized from a facilities or toilets perspective?
I don't believe it is, but obviously that needs to be checked, and we would come back to you on that. Regarding a future change of use on a future tenancy, that I don't, at such time that changes, then we would consider that. But for the operations as is, and then let's say the figurative extension, because of what's actually consented and what we're now seeking approval for, we would clarify that as part of the documentation to come back to you. We believe it is, but we'll check that, of course.
Yeah, so effectively it's a BCA or National Construction Code compliance with minimum requirements. Yeah. Right. Thank you.
Can you also, sorry, would you be able to also confirm that they are, I don't know if it's called DDA anymore, I don't think it is, compliant?
We can check that. off the top of my head, I assume there's an accessible facility in there. Matt can probably clarify that from, but yeah.
Yes, there is an accessible facility inside, disabled toilet.
Thank you.
Does the panel have any other questions? I just have one, just to round this off, hopefully round this off. If the panel were minded to grant a deferral for you to attend to the matters that you do wish to attend to, we need to be quite clear at the end what the net result is going to be. Yes, on the one hand, indeed, you are, it seems to me, proposing not just works, but that there be an authority for 100 in the courtyard. If you can find consent that already says that, well and good. As things stand at the moment, there isn't one. Nobody can find it. So you will need to make that clear. In fact, I thought your statement of environmental effects did rather indicate that, but you've been talking a lot in your most recent letter and again today about this is just for refurbishment, but it will have to go further than that, it seems to me, if you cannot find a consent for 100 in the courtyard. And the final thing, it seems to me, which you need to address is this 74 seats or whatever they are inside. What consent, doesn't that need, I know the current consent is for 100 inside and outside, and we're not sure what's actually meant by outside, but it could be the whole courtyard or perhaps more probably the part of it that in situ has used by itself for all these years. So something has to be done about those inside seats, does it not?
The clarification of the inside seats in relation to the outside seats needs to be produced.
Yeah. I mean, what you ultimately want is 100 in the courtyard, I think, for the use of all 4 tenancies, patrons, and you want 74 inside. That's ultimately what you want. However, whatever road you have to take to get to that result.
Correct.
All right.
And can I make a suggestion in that regard too, Peter, that this condition 3 from modification number 2 relating to development consent 648/1999, I think you need to look at that. That condition, it probably is the fulcrum around which all this spins, on the basis that you need to modify that condition.
Yeah.
Or can this DA override?
It can, but you need to make sure that it's clear in this DA of what you're attempting to do with that condition. That, to me, that condition is both the fulcrum and the hurdle at the same time.
Yeah. Look, it is a bit messy, Ms. Doyle, obviously. And I think the panel is trying to assist you. But at the end of the day, you need to keep in mind what you have in mind. And if that condition needs, in the context of this development application, to read the 74 inside or whatever it is, you have to think about that so that at the end of the day, everything is wrapped up. Okay. Well, if the panel doesn't have any other questions, then our usual procedure would be we will discuss this in closed session later. That is your application for a deferral, and we will let you know about that. Otherwise, we will determine the matter. So I think that then concludes this item 4.2 on the agenda. Mr. Clifton, you didn't wish to say anything further, did you? You are a registered speaker.
Nothing further, Peter. No, thank you. Everything that I wanted to say has been shared.
Right. Thank you very much. Well, then, there being nothing further to discuss, I don't think, in relation to this matter at the moment, the panel will move on to item 4.3 on the agenda, which is 12-14 Rockbath Road, Palm Beach, demolition works and construction of a dwelling house, including a swimming pool. This is DA 2023/0342. As I mentioned earlier, we have 2 objectors who are registered to speak and 3 people registered to speak for the applicant. The 2 registered objectors are Greg Boston of Boston Blythe Planning and Malcolm White of 16 Rockbath Road. Mr. Boston, would you like to address the panel?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I represent the owners of number 10 Rockbath Road, and I've prepared a number of submissions in relation to this application. Look, our fundamental concern relates to view impacts. There's been a number of amended plans, and part of my concern in relation to the latest submission was that the amended plans don't show anything clouded. There was no schedule of amendments provided with the amended plans. And as an adjoining property owner, it's near impossible to spot the difference in relation to the various amendments. Now, the assessment report indicates that a supplementary statement of environmental effects and yet further amended plans were submitted on the 28th of November. However, the supplementary statement's not on Council's DA tracker. So, and again, I'm not sure whether those further amended plans show any further amendments at all. Now, one of the amendments we did pick up was that the existing garage structure located on the boundary with my client's property is now being retained. And we note that the garage structure, as approved, and it's a reasonably recent approval, has a blank wall on the boundary, notwithstanding the fact that as approved, pursuant to DA 2018/1749, there were windows approved in that eastern facade to provide views or maintain views from my client's front courtyard area. So we say that wall, now that it's being retained, is certainly unauthorised, and that there's no ability for the panel to approve the as-built works relating to that unauthorised component. We also say that this isn't an alts and adds DA, it's a new DA, and it's entirely unreasonable to approve a garage structure on a nil boundary setback in circumstances where there is clearly an impact. And when you go to Council's assessment of the garage, which is on page 179 of the agenda, the justification for the nil setback is on the basis that it's an existing structure, and that whilst there's a view impact, it's an existing impact and acceptable. Now, in the context of a new dwelling, we say that is entirely unreasonable. In relation to view impacts, if you look at it, starts on page 166. We ask for profiles to be erected to clearly identify the extent of the impact. And if the panel looks at the photographs in the assessment report and say page 167, and then look at the proposed plans, the proposed building comes out 4.5 metres further to the north than the balcony that you can see in that image. Now, Council's assessed the view impact without the benefit of any profiles. And in fact, on page 166, midway through, it says the erection of height poles was not considered necessary as a satisfactory amount of information was available to determine the extent of impact. And I say, with my 30-odd years experience, I've got no way of visualising where this additional building bulk comes out 4.5 metres towards the cliff face to form any reasonable opinion. You also look at the image on page 169 of the agenda at the bottom, which is a view from my client's property. The building comes out to a point equivalent to that northwestern corner of the balustrade you can see. So the entirety of the view to the southern end of Palm Beach is going to be lost completely from my client's property. And the assessment report indicates that that is in fact the case, but puts a moderate rating on it. And I say that when you buy a property in Palm Beach and you lose the view to Palm Beach, that is unreasonable. You'll also see the northern alignment of the proposed dwelling relative to the cliff line, and it certainly comes and in fact cantilevers. When you look at the section plans, the building actually counterintuitively on page DA12 cantilevers over the cliff line. So to that extent, we say that is unreasonable. Finally, the provisions of, I'll just turn to those specific provisions. provisions of the resilience and hazard SEP applies because the property is in a coastal use area. And if you look at page 158 of your agenda, you'll see council's assessment there and the considerations that you as the consent authority need to consider. And this is at the bottom there under 2.111 Roman numeral 4, that you must consider the visual amenity and scenic qualities of the coast, including the coastland headlands. And then you need to be satisfied that if there is an impact and it can't be reasonably avoided, that the development is designed, sited, and will be managed to minimise that impact. And I say that that consideration simply hasn't been dealt with appropriately in the assessment report, and that the panel, without a site view or without profiles which demonstrate the relationship of this building to the cliff line, can't be reasonably satisfied in relation to that consideration. So we say that the proposal is too close to the cliff. It results in a view impact. It also results in a large building which cantilevers over the cliff line. That if the existing garage were to be retained, generally in the same location, that at least a 2.5 metre side boundary setback should be provided, and the garage should be pushed so it doesn't extend closer to the street than the proposed lift overrun. And that would maintain the view from my client's front courtyard, and with the pulling back from the north, maintain a reasonable view sharing from my client's principal living areas. Apart from that, I'm in the panel's hands and happy to answer any questions that might arise.
Thank you, Mr. Boston. Does the panel have any questions?
No, thank you.
I just have one. When you were discussing the garage, I think you used the word unauthorised. Could you just, for my benefit, just elaborate on that, what it is that's unauthorised and why? Yeah,
sure. So if the panel or someone from council takes down a reference, it's DA 2018/1749, and that was a DA approved for the construction of a garage on the subject property, and that was approved and it's been constructed. And if you look at, if you
it
then
hasn't
turn,
been completed. I can answer that question for you right now. I'm
sorry, just a minute.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, if you then turn to page 10 of the assessment report for that garage under view sharing.
Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Turn to what?
Yeah, page 10 of the council assessment report under view sharing.
Our numbering is different. I'll try and find.
Oh, sorry, this is of that DA. So the assessment report for DA 2018/1749.
Yes, and we turn to what?
Under view sharing. So page 10 of that report under view sharing.
Yeah, well,
the last sentence.
In front of me, Mr. Boston, but
you won't have that.
No.
Mr. Chair, but I'm sure council staff will be able to pull that out for you for your deliberations. Yeah, under view sharing on page 10 of that assessment report, it says, while it should be noted that the view from the window is obtained over the side boundaries of 12 to 14 Rockbath Road, the proposed development has been designed with clear glazed transparent windows to maintain this particular view line. Now, as constructed, that garage has no glazing, no windows on that side boundary, and that is what I say is unauthorised. And in circumstances where the proposal is nominating the retention of that garage structure, I say that that is unreasonable. And I also note that section 37 of the regs, which enables you to amend an application, makes it clear that you've got to clearly identify the amendments on plan and in written form. And in circumstances where nothing is clouded and that there's been no written outline of what the amendments are, I can't see how that's been reasonably notified. So I leave the panel with that thought.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Boston. Any other questions of Mr. Boston? Thank you for that assistance. We'll move on then to the next registered speaker, who is Malcolm White of 16 Rockbath Road. Mr. White, would you like to address the panel?
Mr. Biscoe, I just need to call Mr. White. He asked to be called into the meeting, so I'll phone him through now. Just calling now.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. White. I'm going to leave you in the hands of the panel chair for the Northern Beaches Local Planning Panel.
Yes, hello.
Mr. White, I'm the chair of the panel. You are registered to speak today. This is your opportunity. In case you didn't hear what I had to say earlier, speakers normally have 3 minutes in which to speak, although that can be extended on application. Is there anything, and you can assume that I'm sorry, let me put it this way, the panel has been briefed with all the written submissions. Would you like to address the panel?
Yes, I'd just like to make a couple of points. As I'm sure you're aware, I'm the resident of 16 Rockbath Road, and built previously made 2 submissions on our behalf. Basically, we had significant geotechnical concerns with the development, and I just wanted to reiterate and emphasise, I guess, a request that a condition be made on any approval to reduce the maximum peak particle velocity to 2 millimeters per second, and install full monitoring on my dwelling and the cliff edge. Whilst I understand that any geotechnical issues on the developed property will be dealt with as they arise, this won't really be the case on our land. The actual underlying stability is only assumed. And for all we know, there could be like floaters under the surface bordering on our land or which could be disturbed by rock hammers, and also the additional potential damage to the sandstone wall of my dwelling. I note the need for dilapidation report, which is good, but I think reducing the peak particle velocity would go a long way to securing that. Doubly concerning, I guess, for us is that we have a similar large-scale development proposed on the northern side of our boundary. So ostensibly, we're being carved out of an H1 slope instability and rockfall zone. Our property is not a weekender; it's our main family residence, and if the cliff were to give way at 3 a.m. in the morning, we would go with it. I'd also like to request that the storm water outlet be moved away from our boundary so that when it overflows, it doesn't spill directly onto our property, and also that the spreader does not disperse onto our land, causing, I guess, more erosion. And I guess the third point I'd like to make is I note the recommendation for the privacy screening to the stairwell WG06 in the development application assessment report, and again, that's good. But I would disagree with the view expressed that the elevated pool and terrace do not adversely disrupt the privacy levels on southeastern windows. There's currently a privacy screen there that stands at about just under 3 metres. The proposed development is going to tower a further 4 metres above that, and the easterly projection of that in particular is, has potential to look directly down into the windows of our residents. So I guess I would like some sort of privacy contingent to be employed there as well. But yes, obviously the submissions have been made, and I guess those are the points of particular concern and I guess conditions I'd like imposed on any approval.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Clifton. Does the panel have any questions? No, thank you, Mr. Clifton. Well, then
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. White. I'm sorry, I kept calling you Mr. Clifton.
Yep, that's okay.
We'll then move on then to the registered speakers for the applicant, who are Jenny Askin, Director of A Square Planning, Jeff Sofair, the architect, and Darren Harvey, the owner. Ms. Askin, would you like to address the panel?
Jeff Sofair here. I just need to advise Miss Askin's been called away to a family emergency. So I'm happy to proceed.
Yes, please go ahead, Mr. Sofair.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak. The application before you is the result of several discussions with council aimed at reducing the original scheme and achieving a balanced development. As confirmed by the recommendation, the proposal is worthy of approval. Council's report notes that the amended proposal responds sensitively to its context, provides acceptable visual interest and levels of articulation, and appropriately steps down the site to the north and east. The amended proposal is compliant with the height control, courtesy of the stepped form of the building. It proposes significantly reduced excavation from the original scheme and is consistent with the controls and objectives for earthworks, coastal risk planning, biodiversity protection and geotechnical hazards. The amended proposal also has increased side boundary setbacks with very effective building separation. Landscaped area is compliant. We've also provided additional raised planning beyond that control, which provides a softened edge to the building and additional habitat for native fauna. Regarding view loss, Council's report has a tenacity assessment included, and as Mr. Boston noted, concludes the view loss is moderate, but it does note that the impact is not a consequence of any non-complying elements. In our opinion, the view analysis on, I think it's drawing DA19, shows the impact is actually minor, and it's a very minor portion of view that's affected over a side boundary. So when it's claimed that the entirety of view, quote unquote, of Palm Beach is obliterated, this is somewhat fictional. With respect to the more skillful design test, this has been achieved with the amended design. We've reduced overall height to be compliant. We've set the dwelling further back from the cliff's edge from the original proposal, which retains a significant view corridor for number 10 towards Palm Beach. So again, to address some of those issues from the objectives specifically, we've provided no less than 11 cross sections with this proposal to very, very clearly demonstrate that the building is not cantilevering over the cliff. There's a very, very clear top of bank line shown on those drawings. There are copious RLs shown across the site, and it's in no way hanging over the cliff, I can assure you. And that's demonstrated very, very clearly on all of those sections, which also show height compliance. We're not hanging out there. So I don't want that to be misunderstood. With respect to Mr. White's concerns, we're very, very happy to have full monitoring installed. We'd expect that anyway. And any other reports that are required to give him peace of mind, we're very happy to provide from geotechnical consultants, structural engineers, et cetera, regarding the garage, the existing garage, I think it just needs to be pointed out that that is a previous approval. The openings are actually there. So when Mr. Boston says there's a blank wall to the neighbour, that's not actually correct. The openings are there. We are actually waiting on fire-rated windows to install, which would be the transparent glazing that he refers to. So I just want you to know that is all constructed in accordance with the approval, and there's a CC in place as well, of course, for that work. So I thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Sofair. Does the panel have any questions? No. Very good, thank you. I think the last registered speaker then is Mr. Darren Harvey. Mr. Harvey, do you wish to address the panel?
Thank you. I think Jeff covered everything. I just wanted to make sure about the windows, which I know, and the builder is, I will chase him up again to see what's happening with those. So that's a very newly constructed, well, the work has just been recent. And that is not a weekender for me. My intention is to live there permanently when I have 4 children. it probably can't really accommodate, and that's my intention, is to live there. It's not a weekend that I will be living there. So I just want to clear that up for the panel as well.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Harvey.
That'll be all. Thank you very much.
Does the panel have any questions of Mr. Harvey?
No, thank you.
Well, thank you. Then that concludes all the registered speakers for item 4.3, 12 to 14, Rockbath Road, Palm Beach. We'll move on now to the next item. I'll mention the next item on the agenda, which is 4.4171 Forest Way, Belrose. There are no speakers registered in relation to that matter. So therefore we will move on to the next matter, which is 4.5 on the agenda, 68A Alamata Road, Mona Vale, DA 2023/0774 for alterations and additions to a dwelling house, including a swimming pool. There is one objector who's registered to speak, that is Colin Pocklington of 70 Alamata Road, Mona Vale. One registered speaker for the applicant, Paul Famelli, a representative of the applicant. Mr. Pocklington, would you like to address the panel? Is Mr. Pocklington with us?
He is with us. He's
yes,
just on mute. There we go.
Yes, please go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My wife and I believe that the view loss as a result of the development is not reasonable, and also that the proposed cabana should not be approved. The photos in the council report taken by the consultant on an overcast day do not accurately show water views, and that's as told to us by the consultant. So therefore, we believe they should have relied on the view montages submitted by Bill Tulloch on our behalf on the 12th of September. These view montages were prepared in strict accordance with New South Wales Land and Environment Court standards, and they're excluded from the report and obviously not considered as part of assessing the view loss, which we think is incorrect. The view loss is a result of the raised height of the roof at the front of the house. And in our view loss submission with those montages, there was an alternate design put forward that would have protected or kept most of our current view to the ocean. And we would like the applicant to consider perhaps changing or lowering or changing the angle of the roof just over the front bedroom at the front of the house. And if that can be achieved, then there will be a much less impact on our view loss. The views are extremely important to us. They're one of the main reasons, or one of the important reasons, for buying the property in 2017. And it would be very concerning to us if we did lose all or most of those views to the ocean. In regards to the proposed cabana, it's a built structure with a roof, and our understanding is the minimum setbacks of 2.5 metres on the side and 6.5 metres from the rear boundary apply. As these are quantitative minimum setbacks, we don't really understand how such a substantial breach of planning controls can be deemed to be compliant. Approximately 70% of the cabana's footprint is within the minimum setback area. From the southern window of our house, we will see a monument grey wall, approximately 0.8 metres above the top of the fence and only 2 metres away from our window. Our understanding is that the minimum setbacks are designed to prevent instances such as this, whereby a built structure is in such close proximity to a neighbouring house. We ask that the council does not approve the construction of the cabana as currently designed. That's all. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Pocklington. Does the panel have any questions?
No, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Very good, thank you. In that case, we'll move on to the other speaker on this matter, registered speaker, Paul Famelli, representative on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Famelli, would you like to address the panel?
Thank you, Peter. Yes, I'd like to make 3 points regarding the assessment provided. Firstly, the proposed additions do actually comply with the council's building envelope control on the western elevation, contrary to the suggestion in page 44 of the assessment report. The building envelope shown on the western elevation of the consultant plan as figure 43 towards the rear of the house is actually incorrect. That's shown as their red line. The the property boundary, obviously the consultant planner has used the ground surface at the adjacent to the house, but the survey report by the registered surveyor shows the property boundary actually just to the west of the existing retaining wall. And as the ground level at that location is some 0.9 metres higher above the ground level used by the consultant planner, and it's shown on our south elevation, which is drawing A7, the building envelope is well above the proposed roof structure in that area. The second point I'd like to make is that the favourable view loss assessment has been determined by the consultant planner from the ground floor level of number 70 only. We would like to note, however, that there's no discussion of the uninterrupted views from the first floor of number 70 in the easterly direction over the proposed additions towards the coast, which should actually improve slightly due to the lowering of the overall maximum roof height of 68A, as we're replacing the existing peak tile roof with a low angle skillion roof, which is some 0.5 metre lower. The actual floor level of the first floor of number 70 is RL 44.6, which is some 35 centimetres above the actual maximum height of our proposed roof. And we are, after all, seeking a 2-storey house adjacent to an existing 3-storey house. And just to clarify in the technicality, the third point of tenacity and furlong, of course, state that the assessment of the extent of the impact should be done for the whole of the property, not just for the view that is affected. While this may be an obvious point for you guys, we would like to note the district views from the entire first floor of number 70 and that of the rear neighbours, number 68, will not be adversely affected from the proposed roof alterations, even though there's no discussion of that in the assessment report. Just the third item I'd like to point out is actually part of the conditions, item 17 of page 59 of the conditions that must be addressed prior to any commencement. It requests dilapidation reports of all 3 surrounding properties, and this states internal and externally, including walls, ceilings, roof and structural members. This is not considered appropriate to the level of work proposed. Shallow excavations around part of the boundary of number 68A have already been undertaken by myself by hand to confirm the location of any undocumented buried services, to better understand the soil profile for the structural engineer, and to ensure there's no damage to neighbouring property. This has been a tedious process, but as a professional of the geotechnical industry for over 30 years, I'm very aware of potential complications that may arise if a subsurface assessment is not done correctly, or if excavation foundation works are not planned carefully and conducted appropriately. So the raft concrete slabs for both the cabana and the rear extension will only involve minor clearing of some fill and residual clay as per the geotechnical report finding in those areas. And the proposed swimming pool has been positioned and the depths chosen to match the class 4 and class 5 shale, which is extremely weathered and highly weathered shale rock profile, as defined by the geotech engineer based on augering and DCP tests across the full pool profile. So transfer of the fill and the clay from this identified from the pool area will occur with a mini excavator, but that will only be required to level the adjacent area of the rear yard. And this is not in close proximity to any of the neighbouring houses. The geotechnical engineer has actually recommended that the certifier liaise with the geotechnical engineer to define an appropriate approach to dilapidation assessment specific to the site conditions and the proposed activities prior to the issuance of the construction certificate. And I suspect this is really related to the driveway, which runs the full length of the eastern boundary, and perhaps the retaining wall at the rear of the property, the existing retaining wall at the rear of the property, bordering number 68. So they're the 3 points that I'd like to clarify. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Famelli. Does the panel have any questions?
I do have a question, Mr. Chair. It's probably more appropriately posed to Mr. Pocklington, which is the first floor window that Mr. Famelli has addressed as having or retaining a unimpeded view. What type of room or accommodation is that within number 70?
Upstairs, we have some spare bedrooms where our grandchildren stay when they visit. The view losses from our living areas, which is our lounge dining area, our front balcony and our main bedroom. And that's why the consultant took photos from those 3 locations.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one question. I didn't quite follow Mr. Famelli. I think you're referring to condition 17.
Yes, correct.
Which are
page 59?
Page 354.
Oh, that's right.
Of our papers, it's page 59 of the assessment report. What were you suggesting there was inappropriate about that?
Well, it's inappropriate to look at the cracks in the ceiling of a room which may be, some 30 metres away from any works being undertaken. The focus should be on adjacent structures, as per the geotechnical report, not internal and sort of features within the 3 houses, and then there's the house either side and the house to the rear. It's really just when any sort of cracks in the ceiling are more related to any existing any issues with that house's foundation. It's just simply too far away from.
So shouldn't be any pre-dilapidation reports. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying the dilapidation report should be focused on structures immediately adjacent to the work being carried out. That's my suggestion, conferring what the geotechnical engineer has recommended.
Thank you.
So, for instance, the driveway, which is alongside one of the retaining walls, and there is a retaining wall which is some 3 metres behind the pool that's proposed to be excavated.
Thank you. Then I think the panel doesn't have any further questions. So I thank the speakers for their contribution. So that concludes that item. And then we move finally to item 4.6 on the agenda, 107 Iris Street, Beacon Hill, DA 2023/0379, for Torrens title subdivision of 1 lot into 4 lots. There is only one registered speaker, and that is Marie Jalusis Hayes, the applicant owner. Ms. Hayes, would you like to address the panel? Did you hear what I said, Ms. Hayes?
I did. I'm just getting my technology together. It's just running a bit slow. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson and panel, for hearing our case today. So I sent a document yesterday and I just wanted to refer to a couple of pictures there rather than try and get it up on screen. So would you all happen to have that in front of you at the moment, perchance?
I don't actually. If you are able to share it on the screen, I personally find that helpful.
Maybe I can ask Heidi if she can pop that on the screen for me, my applicant submission.
One moment, let me just get that up.
Thanks, Heidi. I'm not sure if you've all had a chance to go do a drive-by, but I did put some special ribbons up for you on the property, and you can see one. You can see the first one in page on the front cover. So I'll just.
Heidi, are you?
Yep, I have the document. Let me just share my screen now.
Thank you. Yes, please go ahead, Ms. Hayes.
Okay, so you can see on this first page here, this picture shows our whole lot there from the left-hand stormwater pipe over to the right-hand. It's in the shadow a bit there, but right on the corner there is the brick bollard, and you can see that fence, that little wire fence that runs along the right-hand boundary. So that is our full 65 odd metres, and you can see in the middle here, you're probably not seeing my arrow that I'm pointing, but there is a ribbon that runs across and up towards the left side of the tree.
Yes, I can see that.
Yeah, so that's actually, it actually runs to the right side of the tree. So I don't know, that's some sort of other line that's in there, but from, I don't know what, but it actually runs to the right side. That is the boundary of between the right and left block. And if you might have been able to see up the driveway, if you were a bit further up the street, you would have seen the ribbon for the boundary. The east and west boundary would have been behind that white car, so 35 metres up the driveway. So I just wanted to point out, so that's the lot size. It's hard to get it in one photo, and it looks bigger on the right than the left, but surprisingly it's actually the same. It's just that you can't get the photos straight on in one full picture. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that. So that would be the two lot sizes there. Oh, you can sort of see the white line just on that rock there going along the right side of the tree bottom there, the bottom of the tree trunk. So, okay, so, and then if I'd just like to take you to pages, the rest is basically how we came to be here, which is that we had put in another proposal, but we presented something as well to council for a 3-lot subdivision. So the 2 lots at the front, and to keep the existing lot. And Heidi, I might come back to that if that's all right, and go to page 11.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much. So leading up to page 11, it basically goes into what we were proposing originally, which is 2 lots at the front. They were fully compliant with council's regulations and standards. However, council really wanted 4 even lots. They didn't, which is consistent with, as you can see here, 41 and 39. That's a bigger lot, but right next door to us, 45 and 43, and a little bit further down the road there at 31 and 35. And of course, so as a result, we withdrew our, we started again and did the 4-lot subdivision and put together everything required for that, which is about 10 different consultants. And stormwater, driveway, accessibility, all of that. The council did want 1 driveway, whereas our neighbours, just draw your attention, panel 2, our neighbouring lots, and I'll just give a little bit of description there, which is that our neighbouring lots, if you look at neighbouring lots with the 43 and 45 in front of it, so that 4-lot block there, and also 103 and 105 to the other side, which includes 103A at the back. So they are actually sister lots to our lot. They are actually only, one is 20 metres smaller than us, and one is about 18 metres bigger than us, 17 metres bigger than us. So now their sizes don't come up smaller. 45 has just been approved, by the way, so for a subdivision. So that's why I've noted that there. It's still to go through the land registry services, so it's not on title yet, but they're working on that. And number 105 actually has 2 dwellings on it. One is a granny flat. If they were to, and the granny flat's in blue and the existing house there is in red. So in actual fact, although it's been pointed out by a neighbour that it could be inconsistent with the pattern and configuration of the area, our direct neighbours, it's actually the same pattern as what would be theirs, and they have 4 dwellings. on them. And number 45A, soon to be a fourth dwelling on the left side, looking from the street. And on the right side, it's 2 dwellings on 105 and on 103A at the back there. And so now the reason that theirs probably don't stand out as undersized as ours does is that they actually all have individual driveways on 43 and 45, and at the back of theirs they have a shared access there down the number 45 and 40 and 14A. So, but 43 and 45 actually have their own driveways. Now, ours don't. They have one driveway, which is providing an efficient access to our block, but it's actually to the detriment of our sizes. And I'll just draw your attention to the 3 metre rock face which you may remember from the first picture on page 1. And Heidi might just take you back there too. Thanks so much, Heidi. You can see there we had to clear a lot of privet, so it's harder to see. But the original rock, actually, which comes from 45, so that's the left of that stormwater pipe there, that's number 45. That's the sort of virgin rock there. But it was cut from there going across to where the tape or the ribbon is, that white ribbon. It was cut across there. I can't believe they cut so much, but they did, to put in the stormwater pipe, and about 3 metres in from there, they put in the water services and pipes. So that's already been cut there, but that used to be a rock that went from that stormwater pipe along to where the ribbon is. So now council didn't want us to access the driveway there because we're only about 20 metres from the centre of the roundabout, the new roundabout there. And I guess it's not so attractive because it would have had stairs going up and it just would have been a bit more difficult. So council have suggested, which we followed, to go up the driveway and across north-south under the tree, which we've kept that significant tree and we wanted to keep it. Council asked for it to be kept as well, but we'd already been wanting to keep that oak. And the driveway would come in from there rather than being accessed from the front. So also, so that's why we can't put a driveway there. So if that had its own driveway, if the lot on the right side as well had its own driveway, they would actually be quite close in size to the variation, and not such a big variation as it appears on paper, because they've got that shared access going from right up the right-hand boundary, which, by the way, gives 105 quite a bit of privacy because they don't have blocks, they won't have any houses butting up to their block. They will have that sort of buffer zone of the driveway going straight up there. And the point I'm making is that all the lots seem to be undersized, but when you look at them for without the or with the access handle, their portion of the access handle included, really it's just lot 1 and 2 that are about 12% under the standard at 526 metres. And so that was a key point to point out and share with you.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much.
I still have a couple more points, but do you have a question on that? If
Well,
that's
can I just ask you, you probably didn't hear me earlier, we normally just have 3 minutes for speakers, but it can be extended on application. May I inquire of you, how much longer do you think you might need?
Oh, no more than 5 minutes, maybe 3.
All right, let's see if we can do it. Let's see if we can do it in 3 if that's convenient. Yes, please go.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So on the public interest point, I just want to draw your attention to page 18, and would like to note that on lot 103A, which is our neighbour 2 over, but a similar sister to the quad sort of property, they were able to purchase that as a policeman and a nurse because it is a smaller, more affordable block. And there's a lot of, I know from a business perspective in the area, a lot of businesses struggle to get people to fill, essential jobs. Some of those are listed there because they can't afford to live in the area. Aged care, cafe staff, factory workers, allied services like physios, all that sort of thing, podiatry and pathology, etc. And so by providing smaller lots in the area, we're actually allowing that next generation of which, our children to be able to stay in the area in these jobs and not have to move away like a lot of younger people are having to do now, because there are not a lot of variety of properties and lot sizes, which allows them to get something smaller and more affordable. So that's around the public interest point, and I think that basically the development in regards to that provides better wellbeing and a more livable community as a whole, because all people who work in the area are able to have a chance to be able to live in the area. So I think, Mr. Chair, that and panel, that they're the key points.
Thank you. Does the panel have any questions?
I do have one question for Ms. Hayes. At the very beginning, you mentioned you had a 3-lot option or a scenario that didn't progress. What was the reason that didn't progress?
Because we took that to a pre-DA meeting. Because we wanted to be sure. We also worked with our neighbours because we were going to share putting services in. So we called a pre-DA meeting and invited our neighbours to be part of that. And in fact, at the time, my neighbour said, why don't we share your driveway too? And then we don't have to deal with that rock and the roundabout and everything. So they threw that in at the last minute. But council said, and that's noted on page 3, I think, of my application. No, it's page, I'll tell you in a moment, but yes, page 7, which is the Northern Beaches Council pre-lodgement meeting. So it goes into detail there of what they said, which was that they would prefer to have a similar sized allotments, and that they would prefer to have 4, which is the standard, rather than 2 at the front and a larger one at the back, which is not in line with the pattern and configuration of the nearer locality properties. So they suggested that we do 4, which would be more in line with the pattern and configuration of their words, and go to a variation 4.6. Now, I did say at the time that they would be undersized, because I knew I'd been working with the surveyor to draw up our options, which I've put on page page, I think it's page 15, the options. Yes, and really, council were right in that the 4-lot is the best solution, especially because we've got that rock face there. But what it makes it appear smaller, what makes it the sizes appear smaller, is the fact that we've got this, long driveway that goes up to the middle and then crosses the middle. And of course, all of that land area has to be taken out. Having said that, if I can just add, Oliver, to your question and response, is that all of our lot sizes meet all the other criteria in that, and they in fact exceed it. So the width and depth, which is 13 by 27, ours is 17, 18 minimum on average and 32 on average. So we've exceeded the width and depth on every block by about 2 metres. And also we've been able to easily fit a 150 square metre home on there, and also meet the 40% open, the landscape, landscaping, 40% landscaping. And also, because it's not a flat block, the way that they can be built will be that they won't look like a big block of 4 houses. They can be nicely cascaded down the hill. And there was, yes. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you. No more questions from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the panel have any further questions? No. Okay. Well then, thank you, Ms. Hayes, for your assistance.
Okay. Thanks so much, panel, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for your time. Okay.
No problems. So that then concludes all the matters which are listed for oral submissions at this public meeting. So the panel will now, I'll shortly adjourn this or close this public meeting, and the panel will have a short adjournment, and then we'll reconvene in closed sessions, as I indicated earlier, to consider all these matters and also the matters and the non-public meeting item matters. So I think it's just a shade after 12:30 at the moment. The panel will adjourn till 1 o'clock and resume in closed session. This public meeting is now closed.